This is your host for today's episode of Authors Learning Something New. On today's show, we have Thomas Woltz and Rick Tabor, the authors of Finding My Road and Children of the Scroll. On today's show, we have Thomas Woltz and Rick Tabor, that's me, the authors of Finding My Scroll, in the case of Thomas,
Finding
and
My
Children of
Road.
the Scroll. And this is where we hold up the books, and
Finding
that's
My
what they
Road.
look like. All right. So we know each other, Thomas and I know each other from the Sci-Fair Writers Group, which Thomas leads. And there's usually about 10 or 12 people that come and bring writing samples, and we sort of read each other's work and criticize, critique them, and it's a great learning experience. So the first question for Thomas then is to tell us about Finding My Road.
Finding My Road was a culmination of a friendship between two competitive runners back in the 2013, 14, 15, Eno Cantu and myself. And I approached Eno one day after a race and asked him if he would consider or think about us getting together and writing a memoir or a memoir biography and about his running, his competitiveness, his success, and that kind of thing. And I wanted to get in some of his background because it's very unique, born in the 30s and in rural parts of two different cities in, I'd say, mid Texas. And so uh, we sat down and said, set up a schedule for doing interviews. We did the interviews. I formed the interviews into chapters. I came up with 15 initially. With the help of an editor, we honed it down to 10, and pretty much with his blessing, with a few changes. Even his son got involved at one time, critiquing some of the work we'd done, found some other additional changes. And I think all three of us became pretty satisfied with the finished product. And my wife did a little critiquing as well. And then we did indie self-publishing with Create Space, which is part of Amazon. Now it's KDP. And came out in late December. I would like to say 2017, actually, late December 16, 2017.
Nice.
How about you?
Well, Children of the Scroll was inspired by my daughter. We were driving in the car one day and we came across a culvert, and there was a little old lady in a long flowing dress and robe. She was bent over and had a basket. It looked like she was picking berries. And my daughter, Sammy, said, "Hey, Dad, who is that woman?" I said, "Oh, that's the mud woman. She's collecting little children who've been out too late past their dinner and their bedtime. And later tonight, she'll digest them." And I got a punch on the arm. And I said, that's not a bad story, at least a start of a story. And so that turned into ultimately the Children of the Scroll, about a scroll. Kid named Brian loses his mom during the pandemic, and he stumbles across a scroll in an abandoned synagogue. Lo and behold, with the rabbi's help, he's able to bring his mom back to life. And uh, that starts, what else could go possibly right or wrong with that? The adventure. So, how is Finding My Road doing so far? What is
Um, it's doing pretty good. I need a lot more work in the marketing, the things. I have turned it in, I think about 2 years, 2.5 years into an ebook. Um, but the sales are kind of sporadic at this point, and I need to ramp back up. And I'd like to get it in, ideally, into some high schools around here, around the Sci-Fair high schools, which is about 13 high schools. I'd love to get it in about half of those high schools. I have one about a mile and a half from my house, Cy Ridge, and also bookstores, both local and not local. And I think Rick can help me with that actually. And so there, there's
Hey, Tom,
there's
I got a comment right here. So on the cover of your book, if I'm not mistaken, you've got the editor of Runners magazine that reviewed your book on the cover. Is that right?
uh, actually
In the back?
yeah, 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 in the back.
And
It's
had a very cool comment, and I thought that was awesome. And so for how did you get that comment on there?
I went I went
That's a
simply
powerful piece.
at the time I
Yeah.
was still dabbling in I'm a member and a runner coach. I'm actually a certified runner coach with
Okay.
Road Runner Clubs of America. It's the umbrella company which Houston has Hurrah, HARRA, which is Houston Area Road Runners Association. And uh, it's not the only certification for runners, but it's a pretty well respected certification. And so Bart is on the staff, was then on the staff of Runners World Magazine,
Mhm.
a well-known uh, competitive runner and speaker to running groups. And then the other one, which is the major comments on the back here, underneath Eno's picture, is his roommate from undergraduate school, or actually from undergraduate school at the University of Texas in Austin, and he wrote a book called The Ringer, which is a similar inspiration, not unlike yours, little grassroots kind of thing, and a little bit different than Eno's and my book, but they've been. He's passed away since then, but they were very close, all even after graduation and everything. And he was a few years older than Eno, and um, so he gave one, and then I went to a lot of my running buddies, uh, and in the first 3 or 4 pages, uh, I call it praise for finding my road. And I've got about 10 or 12. I had to cut some people out. Um, I,
That's great.
and that's not easy. I chose Paul Keel, Kiell, who wrote The Life and Times of Glenn Cunningham, which is a famous miler from the 30s and 40s. Um, and I got a lot of local talent, Victor and then Bart Yasso, and um, some of which have moved away, but quite a few. I wanted to get some local flavor, and that's why I think I still haven't exhausted what I can do marketing wise in this city. I just have to refocus and see what bookstores. Some have gone, some have popped up. There's a lot of mom and pop bookstores
Oh, yeah.
that the only trouble there is they have limited resources. So
Yep. Yep, that's true. Hey, I thought that was really smart of you, Tom.
yeah.
And so nice work on that one. So what was the most exciting time during the book writing and publishing experience?
Probably right after I wrote it, when I was able to, in either Eno or I, and in some cases both of us, were able to go to locations and have book signings. And Eno, I didn't speak usually. Eno would give a small talk, a short talk, and then questions and answers, and those were always a lot of fun. Sometimes we'd go and there was we'd be there for 3 hours and two people would come and pick up the book and look at it. And sometimes we'd have a half a dozen or so and some would buy the book and type of thing. So it's, it's hard to say what's going to work and what's not. I would say with a lot of situations, restaurants or whatever you want to talk about, um, grocery stores, location, location, location.
Yeah.
Finding a location that uh, that is going to be receptive to coming in and not just browsing through, but coming in and actually considering buying books. It's always good to go to a bookstore like I can't remember the name of it. There's one down in the close to the medical center, and where you can go in and you do a brief talk, and then you have a book signing afterwards. That's ideal.
Yeah.
That's the ideal situations. Um, Rick and I could find if we chose a venue or two, we could go and do the same thing. And they hear from you, you do a reading, and then you take book signings. And I think that's the ideal situation.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. Well, if you were to compare your book with a book that we might already be familiar with, which book would it be and why?
It'd be The Perfect Mile, which was written about Roger Bannister breaking the 4 minute mile. It would also be uh, The Life and Times of Glen County Dam by Dr. Paul Keel,
Yeah.
Kiell. And then Victor's author of The Bell Ringer. The Bell Ringer is the name of the book. So those three are similar, especially Glenn Cunningham's because he grew up in a very rural, their floors were all dirt floors. They all grew up in that type of setting. Glenn was a little older, um, and but good comparison,
Yeah.
and which is in chapter 10 of my book.
Well, let's see. I guess it's time for us to share something that'll help other authors be more successful. Um, what's the most important thing you've done to um, create sales, to make your book most interesting? Whatever important thing you want to share to other, up and coming
If you're beginning the writing process, it's one of the first determinations when you can, and that's not easy to do, is it going to be a novella, a short book? Is it going to be a full-fledged novel? Is it going to be a short story? Quite often, um, Hemingway started out writing short stories, end up writing novels, successful ones too. And, you know, doing short stories, but whatever you do, continue the writing process. When you finish the piece, whatever it is, whether it's a short story or um, poetry even, which is a shorter thing. Uh, but finish what you're writing and then critique it or have it critiqued by other people. Uh, but don't stop after one chapter or 2 pages and time to critique that, and because it's just going to bog down your whole process. You've got to get it down on paper, especially if it's fiction. It's up here. Okay. Uh, Nonfiction, not so much, although there have been some creative nonfiction that has been a mix of both fiction and real, true facts. That's a little different animal, but to get it down on paper, then decide where you're going to go with it. Get some beta readers, get a good critique group that you trust to do the critiquing, and then finally find an editor that you trust that has a background, a record of experience.
nice. Okay. One of the things that I think was worked well for me was, and it was not cheap. I mean, it was $450, but uh, submitting the book for a Kirkus review. I did it after the fact, so after the publication date. I submitted it for a Kirkus review. The preferred method, in my humble opinion, is to submit it before it publishes. And that way, if you get a reasonably good review from Kirkus Reviews, and by the way, Kirkus Reviews is used
Yeah,
throughout all
all
these
over.
libraries and bookstores, booksellers, stuff like that. They all use Kirkus Reviews. And if you get a reasonable review from that, then you can put a back of mine. I've got the main statement from the review, which is, I need my glasses. In Tabor's debut fantasy novel, a colorful cast of characters seeks a magic scroll that can resurrect the dead. Okay, it's sort of a statement, but it's a Kirkus review. It's puts it in the mainstream, and so that's something you can put on the cover of your book, as well as the kind of many recommendations that you got from runners,
Mhm.
runner readers, and such like that. So that would be the one of the things that I would say, hey, uh, one of the most important things I have experienced to create sales, I guess. All right, Tom. Well, we're right about the end of the book. About the end of the uh, show, I suppose it is. So this is your next book that you guys all need to read. Finding My Road, and Children of the Scroll.
And my website is www.thomaswoltz.com.
Perfect. Mine is ricktabor.com. And there you go, guys. Now you know the next book that you need to read. And thanks for watching another episode of Authors Learning Something New. And if you're watching this on my YouTube channel, please hit subscribe button. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.